Hi there, Ted here. So, in this lesson, I thought we would talk about creating a narrative. I think a lot of people, when they're listening to improvised music, but even sometimes, uh, you know, previously composed music, um, they're a little confused about why drummers, especially, play what they're playing. I know as a young player, I used to hear great drummers play, and they'd play what I just thought were sort of random, cool, drummy things. And I would go, oh, okay, well, then I need to play random, cool, drummy things. And that's what they're doing. And it took me a long time to figure out that I needed not to focus on the actual drum stuff, the actual just physical drum things they were doing, but the reasons for them doing that. And I think what we need to keep in mind, and whenever we're playing music, is that we're trying to construct a narrative. If somebody else is in the foreground, like a soloist or something like that, we're helping them construct their narrative. Or if we're soloing ourselves, we're constructing our own narrative. But I think everything needs to sort of come from that. And so, um, and I think the storytelling aspect is really important to that. So, what that means is, and there are lots of ways we can work on this. One is just to listen to a ton of music, and again, try and figure out why somebody's playing something. That's sort of the first thing you want to do. Um, but also, we can think about principles of that and the storytelling aspect from other worlds, like say actually telling a story in words. So, you know, if somebody, say the soloist, musically says something like, "Once upon a time there was a king." Okay, well that's a great opening. So we have some choices, as drummers to do with that first statement. We could go, okay, well, tell me more about that. Or you're listening, which might be just playing time. And then hopefully what they're doing in their narrative, and we want to do that in ours, is they're going to connect to the next idea. So then might go, once upon a time there was a king, but he was very unhappy because he did not have love in his life. Okay, so now we've got sort of an opening idea that's explaining the situation. Then we've got sort of then an explanation of what the problem is that and possibly gets us wondering about how that problem is going to be solved. So that's a great beginning to that. Now, there's other ways you could do that same narrative that also work. You could go, once upon a time there was a king. And speaking of kings, I'm related to royalty. And we think we're distantly related to that king. Now, you could say, well, you've taken that narrative and sort of put yourself in it and maybe obscure the story a bit, which would be a reasonable thing to say. But at the other side of that is, what I've done is I've also connected some ideas, right? I didn't randomly come out with something else about me. I actually said, and speaking of kings, and took you to that, So, it's important to do that too, to connect your ideas, right? To go from one thought musically or otherwise to another one, Don't throw away a good opening idea. Another really good example of this that is on a recording is a great album by this band called Quest. It was David Liebman on saxophone, Richie Barak playing piano, George Mraz on bass, and the great Al Foster on drums. And on this album, and I'm not going to play any of it because I'd probably get into trouble, but it's probably better that you listen to it on your own, actually, and find it. But they play the great old standard, Softly as in a Morning Sunrise. Now, Richie Barak plays a great piano solo, and it's a great demonstration of this idea of storytelling and from a soloist and the drummer aiding and abetting that storytelling. So the first statement in his solo that Richie Byrack plays is like, ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, right? So immediately right there, you've got a great rhythmic, you've got repeated notes, you've got something that's intriguing. That's even a great opening statement to a solo. And then he leaves a space. So you've got this great sort of fairly short idea, first motific idea, and then he just leaves it. And then after he plays that first idea, Al Foster, while he's playing time, plays sort of quarter note triplets on the snare and goes cha 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 cha. So it's this great, ba da ba 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 da cha 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 cha. So immediately Al Foster's got an answer to this first statement, and he didn't go, it didn't go. Richie Byrack, it went ba da ba 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 da. Al Foster didn't do that. That would probably sound sort of corny, and even more importantly, it stops the narrative. We don't have a continuation. We don't, it's not like, Richie Byrack maybe said, once upon a time, there was a king, and Al Foster goes, but rumor he was an alien, right? So immediately that's an intriguing idea, right? So then what happens after Al Foster replies to Richie Byrack's first statement, then Richie Byrack plays a very similar statement and just plays the end of the phrase up a higher interval. And then he goes, ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So, and then Al Foster does the same quarter note triplet thing again. Cha-cha-cha-cha-cha. So it's almost like, they're both sticking to their ideas they originally did too, right? So they're both got this dialogue, but they didn't change what they were doing just because of what the other one was doing. They're sort of using these two separate ideas to create this conversation. And then what happens is then the phrase gets, by Richie Byrack, gets sort of condensed. He goes, ba-doo-da-da, and same thing with Al Foster. He goes, cha-cha, ba-doo-ba-da, cha-cha, right? So it's this great, immediately you've got this very compelling dialogue between, the piano and the drums, mainly the snare drum. And it's a great sound, and you're sort of off to the races. Like it takes you as a listener, goes, okay, what's going to happen next? You want to know what happens next, because the idea of this story has been told very clearly and in a way that you can follow. The same idea with the storytelling idea. If I went, once upon a time there was a king, and he had very anti-disestablishmentarian views. So anyway, about this king. So all I've done there is I've tried to be impressive by using a big word. I'm not even sure if I used the word correctly or if it's actually a word. But, that would be the equivalent of, a soloist or a drummer reacting to the soloist to playing just something they thought, oh, this is so cool, and it's going to show how intelligent I am, and it's going to be great. Well, if that's the only thing that the reason why you're playing something is, that's not good. That's not the narrative. Now there may be a way to stick anti-disestablishmentarianism in a story and have it make sense, but you might have to explain what the word means. You have to create a context for it. And same with some fancy drum like you're playing. It may be perfect in the context of this, but it has to have a reason for existing. Okay? So just in short with this, just keep these things in mind. Keep the listener in mind. Try to create an interesting narrative that draws the listener in, that doesn't confuse them, that logically moves from place to place. And if the soloist is doing that and you're backing them up as a drummer, try to help them do that. Sometimes the best thing you can do is to just keep time and not interject, and that's great too. There's no hard and fast rules to any of this, but you got to be aware of this stuff. You can't do this stuff without thinking about it, but thinking of the bigger picture of the solo, bigger picture of the tune itself, the bigger picture of the set of music, the bigger picture of the evening of music, the bigger picture of the recording you're doing. It all goes to creating that narrative. So I hope this helps you. If you have questions, get a hold of me, and I have lots more modules and lessons available through my blog and my website. So thanks a lot. Take it easy. Bye-bye.